Aaron Boxt, back once again with my podcast, The Rabbi at Temple Beth Shalom in Ocala, Florida. I want to talk today a little bit about a couple of things. So, number one, we dropped off our kids at Camp Coleman. One of our kids was already at camp, she's on staff, and the other two now are 4-week campers, and we are child free in our home until when we both go up to camp in about 10 to 12 days. So now we have, in effect, 13 nights with no children, which has been quiet. Certainly miss our kids. We miss certain aspects of their personalities, and we love to miss them, but we're so glad that they're able to go to Camp Coleman and be who they truly are, and just experience what it's like to be surrounded by a community that is predominantly Jewish and allows them to really dive into who they are as American Jews, and all that entails. Plus, they get to be with their friends, and that's a lot of fun. And we both, Bach and I, are extremely thankful that they're all together for this experience. They get to really share in their experiences together, which of course, totally enhances where they are and enhances their experiences. I know that Camp Coleman is not the right fit for every single camper in the world. Certainly believe that there is a camp out there that is a perfect fit for every child. I do believe that Camp Coleman is the best place there is to be for kids during the summer, Jewish kids during the summer, and I'm certainly happy to have conversations about what being at Camp Coleman is like and the advantages, and certainly what kind of opportunities there are for scholarship and other ways to send your kids to camp. It really should never be about the money. So there's lots of opportunities out there to get scholarship. Certainly, I can help with that and answer any questions one might have about camping in general, but more specifically about Camp Coleman. So, on to the next topic of concern, or topic well, I guess concern. So, I don't dive into politics in my podcast for obvious reasons. I want to be approachable by all people, including all members of my community, as well as all people who hear my podcast or out there in the world. But we are sort of at an existential crisis right now in our country. We have a very divisive campaign that has begun. Actually, I would say probably has been going on for several years, in which both the Republicans and the Democrats have serious concerns, serious issues, serious problems with quote unquote the other side. And I don't want to get into what those specific problems are because that's not what this podcast is about. But what I would suggest is that it's important for people, especially people who live in the United States of America, to take a step back, to take a deep breath, and to think about what's important to them, what's important to the people in their lives, what ideals are important. And then when it comes to deciding who you want to sort of, lead this country in the future, the decisions you make, especially when you go to the voting booth, have everything to do with the questions I just asked a moment ago about what's important to you, what's important in your life, what's important to the people in your life, what ideals do you stand by. And then you make a decision. And you have to be able to support your decision to yourself, not to anybody else. Nobody else has to be able to, you don't have to prove anything to anyone else out there, but you need to be able to prove to yourself and answer to yourself why you support where you support and who you support. And if you're able to understand your own decisions and you're able to support your decisions, then at the end of the day, that's all that matters. The future of our country, the future of our nation, the future of our world, the future for our children depends so much on our ability to recognize the important things in the world and strive towards a world in which those ideals are the ones that are the most stressed. Those ideals are the ones that are focused on, whatever those ideals those are. And when people ask me, what I personally believe, who I personally support, um, it's an easy decision for me because I feel very satisfied with the reasons why I vote, quote unquote, support who and what I do, because I understand the ideals and the ideas behind those that I'm interested in supporting. So when you go to the ballot box in November, when you prepare yourself for which person you're going to vote for and which party you're going to support, just make sure that you understand and are able to support to yourself the reasons why you are supporting that person, that party. I'm happy to have conversations with people, not over podcast, about what my feelings are. Although I think that if you know me at all, if you know me well, you pretty much know where I stand. And our country is facing this crisis, and really it's the way we move forward as a country will determine everything for future generations. I'm 48 years old, and I would say that this is the most important election in my lifetime, without any question. Because whoever is elected, whoever becomes the dominant political force in this country, is going to determine a lot of things about the future. And you can view that in any direction, whether you're left or right or central or none of the above. Last thing I want to mention to talk about today is the continued press for a potential end of the war in Gaza and Israel. It seems that you have two sides that have very different end goals. One side, one side appears to have the desire to end the other. It's very clear to me as a rabbi, as a Jewish person, as a lover of Israel, a lover of Zion. It's very clear to me, especially if I look at Hamas's charter and I look at the way that this war, October 7th, began. It's very clear to me what the end goal is for Hamas, and that is the destruction of the Jewish community, the destruction of Israel as a nation. And actually, if they want to destroy the entire nation of Israel, it's not just Jews, it's Christians and Muslims and Druze and all the other minorities that are inside of the land of Israel. Israel, on the other hand, literally just wants to live in peace. Unfortunately, though, the current elected Prime Minister of Israel does not appear to want just that. He also appears to be very bloodthirsty. He also appears to want the end of not just Hamas, but seemingly the end of Gaza. This is certainly my opinion. I know I'm not alone in my opinion, but this is my opinion. And I believe that neither the people in charge of the government in Israel nor those in charge of the government in Gaza will lead to the kind of peace that everyday citizens on the street in Israel and Palestine want, which is a place for them to raise their children in peace and love, to live their lives the way they want to live, religiously and otherwise, and do it peacefully without the continuous threat of violence. That's my 2 cents on that. I'm hoping that there will be a new election at some point in Israel very soon, so that the Israelis will perhaps have a government that actually is more representative of those people on the ground, the everyday human being on the street. I don't know if that's possible in Gaza and Palestine, but who knows? Only God will help, and God will tell, and only time will tell. Well, that's my podcast for this week. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week once again.